Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Adams, and I'm president of the Nebraska World Affairs Council. I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome all of you to today's webinar, which I believe you'll find very interesting. It looks like we have people on the Zoom meeting today from some of Omaha's overseas Sister Cities locations. I see the people on the call from France, Japan, and Italy today, which is fabulous. Well, let me say a few words about the Nebraska World Affairs Council, who we are, and then I'll introduce today's speaker, Larry Uebner. So Nebraska World Affairs Council's roots go back to 1972, and we're looking forward enthusiastically to our 50th anniversary coming up next year. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit membership organization, and our mission is to provide educational programs and engagement opportunities together with several partners to our three targeted sectors: students, young professionals, and community leaders, so that they may become competent, informed global citizens in this very complex, interconnected world that we all live in. We encourage citizen-to-citizen diplomacy as a way to promote peace and mutual respect so that we may all thrive. We'll hear more about citizen-to-citizen diplomacy in Larry's talk today, which is at the core of the Sister Cities organization mission. Well, why do Nebraskans care about world affairs? Well, annual surveys sent home with students indicate that there are over 120 languages spoken in the homes of Nebraska students. Also, Nebraska ranks 37th in terms of population in the U.S., but it ranks first, second, third, or fourth in certain export categories. In fact, exports provide over 62,000 jobs in the state and represent 9% of Nebraska's economy. Our programs at the Nebraska World Affairs Council cover a wide range of world affairs topics, including food security and conflict resolution, climate, U.S. foreign policy, of course, human rights, international trade, cultural heritage, and international education, just to mention a few topics. So I would like to invite all of you to follow us on Facebook and learn more about our programs and events. Global citizens are definitely needed here, so please consider joining us. Thank you. Now I'll be happy to introduce our guest speaker today, Larry Uebner. Larry is both a director of the International Sister Cities Association as well as a director of the Omaha Sister Cities Association. Larry has an MBA from Eastern Illinois University, and he's been involved in his background is in banking, where he worked for the Omaha National Bank since the 1970s, later called the U.S. National Bank. Larry's been involved with Sister Cities going back to the 1970s as well, and he was deeply involved with the recruiting and implementation of most of the Sister Cities we have in place today, which are 6 in number, and one more is under consideration, which will give us 7 Sister Cities. So I won't take any more of Larry's time, but I think you'll find his presentation fascinating. So Larry, I will turn it over to you. Thank you very much, the Nebraska World Affairs Council. I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome all of you to today's webinar, which I believe you'll find very interesting. It looks like we have people on the Zoom meeting today from some of Omaha's overseas Sister Cities locations. I see the people on the call from France, Japan, and Italy today, which is fabulous. A few words about the Nebraska World Affairs Council, who we are, and then I'll introduce today's speaker, Larry Uebner. The Affairs Council's roots go back to 1972, and we're looking forward to our 5th anniversary coming up. We're a citizen nonprofit, and our mission is to provide educational programs and engagement opportunities together with several partners to our three targeted sectors: students, young professionals, and community leaders, so that they may become competent, informed global citizens in this very complex, interconnected world that we all live in. We encourage citizen-to-citizen diplomacy as a way to promote peace and mutual respect. We may all thrive. Citizen-to-citizen diplomacy talk today, which is at the core of the Sister Cities organization. Well, why do Nebraskans care about world affairs? Surveys sent home with students indicate that there are 120 languages spoken. Nebraska ranks 37th in terms of population in the U.S., but it ranks first, second, third, or fourth in certain export categories. In fact, exports provide over 62,000 jobs in the state and represent 9% of the World Affairs Council co-affairs topics: climate, U.S. foreign policy, of course, trade, cultural heritage, and international education, a few topics. So I would like to invite all of you to follow us on Facebook and learn more about our programs and events. Global citizens are definitely needed here, so please consider joining us. Thank you. Now I'll be happy to introduce our guest speaker today, Larry Uebner. Larry is both a director of the International Sister Cities Association as well as a director of the Omaha Sister Cities Association. Larry has an MBA from Eastern Illinois University, and he's been involved in his background is in banking, where he worked for the Omaha National Bank since the 1970s, later called the U.S. National Bank. Larry's been involved with Sister Cities going back to the 1970s as well. Turn it over to you. Thank you.
But also how one like Sister Cities International and the Omaha Sister Cities Association impact on a local level. And, as you know, that President Eisenhower had directed the war, the second World War. This is a copy of this before they attacked Omaha Beach. And one of the things that he said, and he felt that there will never be enough diplomats and information officers to get the job done without the help from the rest of us. It must have the active support of thousands of independent private groups and of millions of individual Americans acting through person-to-person communication in foreign lands. And so that was his background. And he formed the Sister City organization, or the People to People, in 1956 in a conference. And I've just got his opening remarks here, which I'll share with you.
But I'm emboldened to talk because the purpose of this meeting is the most worthwhile purpose there is in the world today: to help build the road to peace. Help build the road to an enduring, particular part of the work is based upon the assumption that no people as such wants war, that all people want peace. We know this to be a true assumption, but we know also that in certain portions of the world, it is not understood as such, because some thought, and they are captive audiences, that others, including ourselves, want war, that we are warlike, that we're materialistic, that we are, in fact, hoping for cataclysms of that kind so that a few may profit, they say, out of the misery of the world.
There we are. Okay. I was born before computers, and this is really my first or my second attempt at a PowerPoint. So now that was the basis of what President Eisenhower wanted to do back in '56. And in order to get organized, he had 40 committees that worked with him to get this project off the ground. And the head of the legal committee was from Nebraska. It was Robert Simmons, who was the Chief Justice of the Nebraska Supreme Court. And I think that we can be very proud of Nebraska's participation in the beginning of this project. It started out affiliated with the National League of Cities in 1956. The President of the United States is the honorary chair of Sister Cities. And then it evolved into an organization they called the Town Affiliation Association, which is part of the National League of Cities. And then it spun off from there in 1973 into Sister Cities International, and that's what we are today. The function of Sister Cities International is to train and support the 471 U.S. cities that are a part of this organization. They do that via an annual conference, a youth summit of high school students, usually about 100 to 125 that convene at the same time as the annual meeting. They have toolkits to help the various cities organize their projects. The national organization works with the J1 student visa for long-term high school student exchanges. Omaha did that. We did it for 10 years and probably served about 30 students from Japan under that program. Some of them turned into UNO students. They liked Omaha so much they came back and went to school here. One of the major projects undertaken by Sister Cities International was a Gates grant of $7 million. The Gates organization wanted to focus on Africa with water and education and healthcare projects. And there were already established links between the US cities and African cities. So there were 23 cities selected to carry out those programs in their sister cities, which was really a great honor for us to have a Gates grant like that, and I think very effective. Here's a picture of the US and the states and the number of relationships they have. You can see in the orange, it's California, Texas, and Florida that have the most. You've got the next level is in Washington and Denver and Illinois and such. Nebraska is blue, that we have 1 to 10 partnerships, but that will be expanding. I think we'll get into this year or so. And this is what we look like around the world. In the 71 US cities, there are 1,800 partnerships in the world in 138 countries. About a third of them in Europe, 20% in the Americas, and then other countries. But these are the top 10, going from Mexico down to South Korea in the top 10. In Nebraska, we have 5 cities that have sister cities: Omaha, Boys Town. Boys Town is affiliated with Father Flanagan's hometown of Ballymoe, Ireland. I think that town's about 500 people. And then Kearney, through the University of Nebraska at Kearney, they've connected with Opava in the Czech Republic. Hastings, Nebraska, they had a student that graduated from Hastings College and went over and taught English in Ozu, Japan. And they've had a relationship over 20 years. When he came back, he got them involved, in the city involved. And the college already has a small Japanese garden that was gifted to them by Ozu. And then in Scotts Bluff, Bamyan, Afghanistan, that was introduced. Tom Gutierrez many years ago had Bamyan into the university and took them out through Nebraska, out to Scotts Bluff, Gearing, and established a relationship with Scotts Bluff, Gearing, and Bamyan. The teachers went back, and it's pretty tough. You can't travel there. I asked the president at the time, I said, have you ever been there? He said, yes. He said, I flew in to Kabul, and he said, we had a 3-vehicle security escort in front of us and behind us to go out and visit with the day with the teachers, and then came back. But since then, any connection had to be virtual. But it's tough because the Taliban do not believe in females teaching. And I think they may be relegated to teaching young girls in Bamyan. How do sister cities begin? Well, in Omaha, it was really our ethnic population. Interesting, back in 1920, Omaha was 50% of our population was either foreign-born or first-generation foreign-born or born. And then also through university connections, there might be business ties that started, government relationships, personal and student ties, just like in Hastings, they come back, and also foreign city requests. And the reason I say that is Aspen, Colorado has a population of 6,000, but they have 7 sister cities. They happen to be in Italy and Switzerland and Germany and some of those ski countries. So that's how Aspen turned out with so many. If any of you are interested in looking at what the immigrant population is like in Omaha and the history of it, Douglas County Historical Society has a great book. They describe the 20 ethnic groups that made up our city, and you can get that from their bookstore. Here's Omaha Sister Cities. It started in 1965 with a group of significant business leaders, and Kazuo Takechi and Kimi Takechi. They met a doctor that was investigating a possible sister city in the United States from Shizuoka. They got him out to the Midwest and visited him in Omaha, and that's what started that relationship. And then Braunschweig, the German American Society, very strong society in Omaha, came and wanted to establish a relationship with Braunschweig. They already had a connection with them. And so that happened. And then the Lithuanians came to Omaha Sister Cities and said, our country is just broken free from Russian domination, and we'd like to help them get back on a fast track to democracy and a free market. So that got established in '96. And then Mayor Fahey was the mayor at the time that we linked up with Naas, Ireland. It is basically a suburb of Dublin. And that group is supported by the Hibernians and Lady Hibernians. And then Mayor Fahey asked, well, why don't we have a Mexican sister city since we have such a large population here? And we went to the Mexican Council and talked to him about organizing a committee. And we organized that committee and did a search and found Jalapa, Mexico, which is on the East Coast, near the East Coast in Mexico. And then a question came up about, well, what about China? That's a fast growing relationship around the world, and found that Valmont Industries was building their third plant in that area of China. And so Omaha Sister Cities linked up with the anti-China, which is a population of about 3 million on the Bohai Sea. And then Mayor Stothert was interested in continuing to expand our sister city relationships. And we thought, well, what about connecting with France in Omaha Beach with a namesake? So that relationship was established with Insignia, Omaha Intercom. There's a lot of farm communities along that whole Normandy coast, and there's not a very large population in any one, but they have formed a coalition of many of those cities along the coast to form that relationship, and that's supported by Alliance Française. The Sister City process is to have a group make an application to the Sister City to us. A lot of consideration and discussion goes on back and forth. Once it's decided that we'll start to pursue that, an advanced team goes to that city, checks it out, and an advanced team comes to Omaha to see what Omaha is all about. We approach the mayor, describe what the desires are, and then a proclamation resolution is passed by the city council. All of our sister city relationships have to be approved by the city council in a formal agreement. And then after that is established, then we will organize a delegation to a sister city to sign an agreement there. And then they would have a delegation come and we can sign an agreement here, and it's led by the mayor or other city official. Personal connections and exchanges are really very important and life-changing for us. Tourism, certainly, when we have groups going back and forth, typically we'll take a trip to a sister city at least every 5 years with the number of sister cities that we have now. But we also host college and high school students, short-term, long-term. Japan sends 30 students every summer for 5 or 6 days, and they stay with host families. We've had long-term Shizuoka students come. As I said, we've had 30 of them over the past several years come to do that. We've had sports teams. Shizuoka sent a baseball team to Omaha to play. They were 12 and 13-year-olds to play during the College World Series, because all the other minor community teams play and then usually attend a College World Series game. And so the Shizuoka students came, and it was interesting when the Japanese students would approach home base to take their stance, they would bow to the umpire. That was kind of a cultural introduction for the American kids. And after the first inning, the umpire came over to the group and said, "How do you call balls and strikes in Japanese?" So everybody really got into it. And the baseball team had a great time here. We've had scouts coming in from Ireland and Girl Scouts from Shizuoka. I've been attending scout camp, staying with host families for a day or two before and a day or two after. It's interesting, several years ago, Omaha Sister City got a Reader's Digest grant for supporting minorities and visiting our sister cities. And so we connected with Germany, and there were about 8 or 10 North Omaha students that were part of the delegation. And they went over to Germany, and they stayed about, I think it was about a week. And then the Germans sent over their minorities, which in Braunschweig, they were the Turkish. Well, Omaha Sister Cities doesn't have a whole lot of money. And so we were able to get involved with an organization in North Omaha that when the kids went to camp, the North Omaha kids went along with the Turkish kids and enjoyed, meeting each other again and having a good time at camp. But the Turkish kids came to us with a question about, well, you have segregated the minorities into this camp, and we're minorities and we got segregated with them. Don't you have non-segregation policies? And we said, well, yes, we do, and we're sorry that you feel it was that way, but we were able to get complimentary admission to their camp for you, and it didn't cost us any money, so we were, that's the reason that you were together. But it was an interesting view from that. And just another thing, many years ago, Junior Achievement would send a couple students to Shizuoka, and we would have a committee to select students. And who was one of the students? Alexander Payne. Now here's what I think is really the key to the effect of sister cities, is the cultural and economic benefits of our city. And we'll go through all of these, through the Shizuoka Zoo, the Henry Dorley Zoo, Lawrence Gardens, Joslin Art, Jalapa, Braunschweig, and Chalet. These are all benefits that have emanated from the relationship we have with our sister cities. Starts back in 1969, when, and we were only formed in 65, so this was soon after, but the Shizuoka Zoo was opening and they wanted a couple bison. And so we sent a couple bison calves over there. There was a naming contest the World Herald had, and ended up being, the girl was called Tranquility because Tranquility Base was just founded in 1969, and the other one was Nebraska Lad. Well, it only took about 2 or 3 years, and Mayor Leahy goes over there, and this is what one of them looks like when he visited just a few years later. The pair of buffalo have populated bison in 30 different zoos in Japan, and we had to send a second female buffalo over there to mix the genetic strain. In turn, we were about 5 years ago, we took a trip to Shizuoka, and to return a gift to them, we got a Kaneko sculpture, and you can see George Behringer there and Mary Kane, okay, who's I?
Pete Festerson.
Pete Festerson, thank you, and Pete Festerson. So they were unveiling a Kaneko sculpture that got to that one. Our relationship with Jalapa, Mexico, they discovered a civilization just north of Jalapa in the jungle that was a 600 BC civilization. And this civilization carves stone heads. And this is the largest size that they count. This is a replica of an Olmec. It was an Olmec civilization. And all of the heads were buried in the ground facing up. They don't know why, but all of the heads that have been recovered are either in a museum in Jalapa or in Mexico City. This is a 10-ton stone head that was donated to Henry Dorley Zoo and is now located in the lower level of the jungle. In regards to Lawrence Gardens, Shizuoka is the home of the first shogun. It was the summer home of the first shogun of Japan, and his castle was there in Shizuoka. And this is a replica of the castle gate, about third replica, and it was shipped over here, and Werner Transport picked it up at the coast in California and brought it here for a donation, a celebration 15 years ago. And so it is part of Lords and Gardens. And you can see a mini Mount Fuji behind it. For the 40th anniversary, the Shizuoka delegation built and brought over and assembled a tea house. And so there's an outdoor tea there and on site. And those two objects have actually created another donation to Lords and Gardens. $1 million donation was made about a year ago to build a Japanese rock garden. And it's currently under construction at Lords and Gardens, along with the continued development around that site. So these benefits, just another, example for Lords and Gardens to attract people to their gardens the next year to see the newest addition to what can happen. The Lithuanians also have participated in an exhibit there at Lords and Gardens. Wood carvers, they'll take a solid tree trunk and carve an object out of it. And this was held for a couple of summers during the summer where the wood carvers would demonstrate doing this from scratch. And this is what they've built. This is all carved out of a solid piece of log, and it's in the northeast corner of Lords and Gardens. And what they are fairy tales. In Lithuania, all of these wood carvings are placed in the forest, and people walk through the forest and can teach their kids about the fairy tales and spirits and what have you that they have in Lithuania. And there are small descriptions along the way of what these are at Lords and Gardens. Just another feature that attracts people to the gardens. Back in 2008, I believe it was, Jalapa shipped 36 pieces of Diego Rivera artwork for Joslin Art Museum. And so Joslin was able to have this famous Jalapa artist and Mexican artist bring their artwork up to show in Joslin. Just another feature to draw more people in. Our relationship with Jalapa, there were a couple ambulances vans from rural metro ambulance that were being retired. And so Union Pacific agreed to take them down there. And when we got down there a few months later, here they are with the logo of Omaha on the side of the ambulance. And then on the back of the ambulances, they named them. And this one was named for Elvira Garcia, who was a professor at UNO and was very active in Omaha Sister Cities Association. So we were delighted to see how that occurred. And Jalapa was so enamored with their relationship with Omaha that they even put up this piece in their park in downtown, right across from City Hall, our old logo. Back in 2017, Mayor Stothert said, we've got some ambulances that have gone beyond their engine hours and they're going to be retired. So she donated 4 Omaha ambulances to Jalapa. They couldn't have been more delighted because they don't have the type of security or safety and ambulances, and they've got a lot of little villages around Jalapa. And so I think these have been dispersed to some of those villages. Again, Union Pacific was there, loading those ambulances on a rail car and taking them down for us. One of the gifts that we gave to Lithuania and Germany was a troupe of Native American dancers called the Dreams of Eagles. There were 11 of them, drummer, female dancers, and fancy dancers. And these are 3 of them that were in the delegation performing for the citizens of Chalet, as well as Braunschweig. We went to Braunschweig and they also performed there. So to get to know our sister cities a little bit, here's a downtown view of Shizuoka. You can see the bicycles and motor scooters and vehicles. This is what you see when you leave the train station. Shizuoka is the prefecture of Mount Fuji. And so you can see Mount Fuji from Shizuoka, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful scene. Braunschweig, here's a aerial view of downtown Braunschweig and their lion, which is the symbol of Braunschweig. Mayor Fahey and okay, I got, and Dan Welsh, that was Dan was on the city council at the time, standing in front of the old city hall. This was the old city hall. Here's the city hall in Šiauliai, Lithuania, and a street scene. Mayor Fahey talking with the mayor in Šiauliai. I was part of that original visiting group and met Mayor Lankauskas. He was the mayor at the time. And we got to talking one night about gliders. And he said, "Oh, have you ever been up in a glider?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, we can go up tomorrow." And so he took me up. He's a glider pilot. And we flew up, I and a trainer. I flew it for a little bit. We flew around for about 15 minutes and landed safely. And then after we finished, I found out that he was the champion glider pilot of Lithuania for 3 years. So I was in good hands, but I can say I've flown a glider. And this is a picture of, I think you might be able to tell, it's Ireland. Naas, Ireland, City Hall. One of our delegation visits there, and the famous Naas Bridge, which you can cross in a car. Jalapa, Mexico, City Hall, very beautiful. And again, Fahey with the mayor of Jalapa. And then our Chinese sister city in Yantai, it's about 3 million population on the Bohai Sea. This is the downtown view. Mayor Suttle was with us at the time. We signed that agreement and with the mayor, sitting with the mayor in Yantai, and signing of the agreement there. And Signy is our newest 2019 sister city on the Normandy coast. And this was at the beach area there, one of the demonstrations they have, and our delegation that was there in 2019 got to get their picture taken on the landing craft. This was the symbols on the beach. It was a little bit of a rainy day there, but this is Mayor Stothert with the president of the Sister Cities Association for the Insignia Intercom. And this is what the signing ceremony looked like at that time. This was the entire group. They had a which was really great. In the works are a sister city in Carlentini in Sicily. Back in 1920s, an individual from traveled to Omaha. Union Pacific asked recruit more citizens. So I think I was told at the time about half the town left and came to Omaha. So Little Italy, probably hundreds, if not thousands, of descendants of the original Carlentini came to Omaha. And we are currently being considering Carlentini city. The view of Carlentini, it's a few miles from the very connected, and they want desperately to be a city of Omaha. And I'll finally finish with, there have been 3 marriages between Lithuania, Šiauliai, Lithuania, and Omaha. They live in Omaha. And these are the personal connections that are made. This was made while they were students at UNO. 5 marriages between Shizuoka and some of them living in Shizuoka, some in Omaha. And we've had a couple out of Braunschweig. The relationships are wonderful, very warm between us, can be life such as this. I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Larry. That was fascinating. I learned so many things. If you have any questions, just enter them in the chat board if you would. One in here, Keith asks if a community has a sister city in mind, another sister city.
That pretty much depends on so I would suggest that if they wish to start some conversation, that they contact the Sister City Board. We have a website and they can go on the website, or and I can put them in touch with the people.
Thank you. I had a question about, you had mentioned the foundation project where they tried to organize sister city relationships in Africa to work on healthcare projects. Any other efforts like that where multiple sister cities have been engaged in some humanitarian project?
I don't think so. Not since I've been on the board. The gave effort, they had to hire an administrator in Africa to help administer that, but they did complete the projects. It was pretty much given their own to build what they were $125,000.
I see. It seems like a resource of some sister cities working together to shared goal overseas.
Somebody there, we can, they can pursue that.
I had understood that you'd mentioned Carlentini, and we have a festival in Omaha, which is the Santa Lucia Festival, and they have one as well in Carlentini, and I gather there's going to be some exchanges this year in both directions for those two festivals.
Yes, it's interesting that Santa Lucia Festival that is in South Omaha, Santa Lucia is Carlentini. And so they just would love to be able to link up with that town. So there's a project. We're having a sister city meeting this week to pursue that issue.
One of them that came up, when you have these travel exchanges, someone is asking whether citizens can ask to join those trips.
Yes, they can. We'd like them to become a member of Sister Cities, but we are hopeful that when this pandemic gets through, we had scheduled a trip to Shizuoka, Japan in October last year during their Daido Gay Street Festival. And we're hopeful that we may be able to resurrect that in late October this year, depending on how the pandemic situation works out. But I would encourage them, in order to be kept abreast of what's going on in Sister Cities, is to join as a member, and then make sure that they get all the emails and such that get sent out.
Okay, thank you.
Larry, I have a question. Patrick McNamara here. First, thanks for your presentation and thanks for all that you have done on Sister Cities Connections. My question is, how is the Sister Cities Omaha Association funded? And is there anything that we can do to help to make even more?
Well, Sister Cities, their budget is around $50,000 or $60,000 a year. Funded that go, and we will maybe have a couple hundred people at the gala and have some revenues off of that over expenses. We spent there about 3 years ago, since President Trump did not respond to Sister Cities' request to be the honor. We asked Mrs. Pence if she would be willing. She was a teacher, and so she said yes, she would be willing to. Very happy to be the vice chair for Sister Cities. So that, along with specific contributions for maybe some projects that we might. It's not easy to raise the funds, but we were able to raise the funds to get the Tanuki from Kaneko, and businesses there, do a lot of voluntary work for us. Union Pacific, the zoo, we had the heavy duty crane there to help get that offloaded. And then like Werner Train and other organizations will volunteer their efforts too.
Larry, whether you could think of a memorable event that's years of working with Sister Cities.
Well, yes, there are. And I guess one of the girls' video from Chalet, when I visited Chalet for the first time, her and her parents, they were living in 5th floor of a concrete Russian building with no elevators, and they had a 1-bedroom apartment, and she was 13 years old, and she slept in her room, her parents in their bedroom. I suggested an opportunity for her to come to Omaha sometime, and either as a college student. She ended up coming to UNO. She graduated from UNO, got her bachelor's degree, went home for a year, came back, got her master's degree in Omaha, met her husband, and now she's living in Omaha on a beautiful lake in Omaha and has 3 kids. That is a life-changing experience. I feel guilty because it's their only child, and I have taken their only child to the United States, but she's her kids every year and keep that relationship. It's probably significant things I've been personally involved with.
Wonderful. So would like to share? Andy, I see you're there on the trip to France, I believe. What were your experience in that trip?
Hello, Michael. Nice to hear home on that France trip were very, very powerful. It was emotional. First we'd had a wonderful connection because we hosted, and I see Philippe Lelier is on the call as well. We hosted several of the mayors from the Isigny Omaha Intercom to Omaha in March of 2019. And we treated them to a beautiful snowstorm on their first day in Omaha as well. But we had made a wonderful connection, and our delegation first went to France the following month in April. We were just hosted magnificently, but also treated to experiences, and commemorate just eye-watering, tearful moments. My moment, just go and compare my moment in Sister Cities, is there was nothing like standing, holding hands with our French hosts and singing both our national anthems on the shores of Omaha Beach. I mean, and it was repeated events like that, introduction. One of the actual veterans, a medic who was in the first wave that landed on Omaha Beach. And it created a bond that already existed for 75 years, but to do that on a personal level, a generation later, to meet members, I mean, it's one of the most powerful. And so I'm just looking forward to continuing that relationship we've started and actually getting more people over here. That invitation is open in both directions. And I guess what I'll use this as let's do some more virtual moments like this. I mean, we just saw only, 5 of these experiences together from various cities each. And it's a great way to go ahead and bring together ourselves and, to bring some, continue that contact so that we can eventually get together again in person, send our kids back and forth and ship going. So that's kind of an appeal. Well, I'd be very glad to help try and do some virtual organizing in the meantime until we can get together.
So Andy, you're also on the board of...
Yeah, I would just make a comment. I went to Yantai in 2000, 7 million people there now. And I've been in contact with my my friend that I made, that I was my interpreter at the time. And we were thinking about this year is our 10th year anniversary with the Yantai group. So we're thinking about possibly, since we can't travel across the world, we're thinking about doing a virtual kind of a Zoom celebration. That's
a great idea. So let's see, Larry, we have one of the people involved in the Carlentini group, Alvacanti. Let's go and what do you...
Okay, and I'm just one of about 4 or 5 of our. I believe Eleonora was on as well from Carlentini, but I was just thinking that the activities that have taken place between the Omaha and their respective sister cities has been very, very, I'm looking at the exchange of art and culture, and it's just amazing what it does for the respective communities. The exchange of equipment no longer be used here, but is such an upgrade to another city for rescue services and that. And it's our eyes or our creative minds to thinking in even different terms other than what we already believe that we're working on. This has very much been well worth the time that I've spent here, just listening and absorb.
Well, when I think of Italy, the things that come to are food, hospitality, and wine. And we could use expertise in all of those areas, I think, here.
Well, I know about some things. Wine is one of those culinary. I'm looking at the art exchanges in kind of in a lighthearted way. Eleonora has brought so much energy to it from Carlentini. I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't reach out to the Pope and ask her something like that. Andy knows what I'm talking about. I see him starting to smile, but I wouldn't put anything past and go and make it extreme.
Yeah.
Ciao, Eleonora.
Forza, Eleonora.
Hey, ciao, Eleonora.
Ciao.
So we couldn't get your audio get the idea. Yeah.
Just so we have more than okay, so maybe like this. Can
Well,
you
that's
hear me?
good.
Much better.
Va bene.
Okay, va bene. So I was just saying that we have more than 300 varieties of wine, and the agriculture is still our first source of economy in our island, and we have so much that we are able to preserve long term. Making culture has influenced Italian culture, and even in Omaha there is this deep island that is like a uniformal sistership relationship. Our exchanges, your agriculture on the other hand, and maybe develop.
Somehow we need to adopt that sense of preservation and respect for some of these small towns and find a way to reintroduce some life back into them, in my opinion.
Yes, it's very interesting. And what I find that still in Sicily exists is our way to be kind of independent. A lot of family, they have little gardens and they are able to make their own products. And we really can say that sometimes we don't need anybody else to survive. And it's something that we should learn in this moment when we needed to we needed to introduce something from the outside to survive. And in Sicily we still preserve this attention. That's what the UNESCO says, talking about the Mediterranean diet is not just vegetable fat such as olive oil, but it's a way to make the products that obviously here we still follow in an organic way, and to preserve them, and how to family reunions, religious occasions, the entire year is always, let's say, related to the products of the moment. And even our gestures, they change according to which part of the year we are. Now we are getting ready for Easter. We will prepare cassatelle. We are getting our ricotta. And
You're making me hungry.
Prepare our flour that we look for, because we cannot introduce a seed from abroad. I know. So we really have those that I needed to be passed to the following and next.
Well, thank you very much, Eleonora. Reached the end of our hour scheduled presentation. Thank Larry very much for the presentation. It was fascinating. And we have recorded it, and we'll be putting it up on our YouTube site in a few days. So we'll send out a link to that. Also, I want to thank all the attendees who tuned in today. And I just want to let you know that we have our next event is going to be on the 17th of February. And it's an in-depth examination of U.S.-Cuba relations and how they may have evolved under the Biden administration. We may even hear something about that mysterious illness that the embassy employees in Havana experienced. So February 17th for that. And please visit us on our Facebook site to see the schedule of other events. Thank you very much, everybody. And we hope to see you in another one of these events soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, Larry.
Ciao.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Ciao. Ciao tutti.
Ciao.
Oh.
Hey, Chad.
Bye-bye. Great to see everyone. Au revoir. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Nice seeing you, Philippe. Thanks for being my
Oh,
glove.
wow.
We'll keep on. We'll keep on. Bye-bye, Philippe.
See you soon.
You too. Two Philippes.
Two Philippe for one, at the same time.
We have hundreds more photos of Les Braves. We'll send those over to you. I'll send you a link, Philippe.
And some you won't show, will you?
No, those are the stories for later.
It's another story.
Okay,
right.
take
Bye
care.
for
I know it's late. Bye-bye. Thanks for staying up late. Good night.
Good night.